The air tastes of salt and spilled rum, so thick you can almost chew on it. Every breath is a ghost of 1,000 whispered deals and 100 forgotten brawls. Below the cacophony of slurred sea shanties and the rhythmic thump of a peg leg on worn floorboards, there's a deeper sound, a low hum of desperation, the frequency of people who have bet their very last coin, their very last chance on a single audacious scheme. This is a story about one of those schemes. A plan to beach a stolen ship in a secret cove, to scrape the rot and ruin from its hull in a race against the tide and the law. It's a gamble that pits a calm, greedy auctioneer against a curious, quiet informant in a shadow war for a fortune. Of course, in a world where a whisper can be as deadly as a blade, fortune is just another word for a bigger target on your back. Hi guy, tonight we delve into that treacherous world, the golden age of piracy, specifically focusing on the dark, damp corners of the Caribbean and the American colonies. You're about to step into one such corner, a dimly lit tavern called the Salty Dog, where the air is heavy with the smell of stale ale, sweat, and secrets. You probably won't survive this, but hey, at least the story will be entertaining. So before you get too comfortable, maybe take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It truly helps. And in the comments, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, ambient hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're sitting at a rough-hewn table, the wood sticky under your forearms. The tankard in your hand is heavy, cool, and filled with something that might be beer or might just be bitter, brown water. You don't question it. In a place like the Salty Dog, you don't question much. The tavern is a low-ceilinged, smoky cavern carved out of the gut of a port town that's seen better decades. Lanterns swing from thick, dark beams, casting long, dancing shadows that make every patron look like a conspirator. And tonight, most of them are. Your eyes adjust to the gloom, tracing the water stains on the walls, the notches carved into the tables, each one a marker for a debt paid or a life lost. A sudden, raucous laugh erupts from the far corner, sharp enough to cut through the din. You turn your head slowly, cautiously. You don't want to be noticed here. You're just a traveler, a face in the crowd, trying to get your bearings. The laughter came from a table crowded with sailors, their faces weathered and sun-scorched, their clothes a patchwork of stolen finery and practical rags. But they aren't the center of attention. She is. Siobhan Kelly, or Shiv, as she's known to the few people she trusts and the many she's bankrupted, sits at the head of the table. She isn't laughing. She doesn't have to. A small, self-satisfied smile plays on her lips as she watches the man next to her roar with delight. She is an island of unnerving calm in a sea of boisterous chaos. While the men around her drink with reckless abandon, her own mug sits untouched. Her focus is on the small, glittering pile of gold and silver coins she is methodically, almost hypnotically, stacking on the table. One by one, she picks them up, feels their weight, and places them into a neat column. Her fingers are long and elegant, a stark contrast to the grimy, calloused hands of her companions. She's an auctioneer by trade, and you can see it in her eyes. That cool, assessing gaze that can size up the value of a man just as easily as a piece of jewelry. Every person at her table is an asset or a liability, and she is calculating the final sum. This is her meeting. This is her plan. Standing just behind her right shoulder, half swallowed by the shadows, is a mountain of a man. His name is Israel Hands, and he's the only one in the tavern who seems more dangerous than Shiv herself, but in a completely different way. Where she is cold and calculating, he is a furnace of quiet intensity. He's not watching the table, he's watching the room. His eyes, dark and surprisingly gentle, sweep across the tavern, missing nothing. They pass over the drunken card game, the barmaid wiping down the counter, the lone figure in the corner, and for a fleeting, unnerving moment, they pass over you. He's an assassin, you've heard. But the way he watches over Shiv speaks of something more than a professional arrangement. There's a familial, protective care in his stillness. He is her shadow, her shield, the unspoken threat that allows her to remain so perfectly, terrifyingly calm. Their bond is the bedrock of this entire insane venture. The venture, as you've gathered from scraps of conversation you pretend not to hear, is careening, taking a captured prize ship, the Sea Serpent, to a hidden beach, a place no one is supposed to know about, There, they'll heave it onto its side, scrape the barnacles and marine growth from the hull, a foul, back-breaking job that makes a ship vulnerable, immobile, a sitting duck. But if they succeed, the sea serpent will be faster, nimbler, and ready to outrun any naval patrol in the colonies. The cargo in its hold, they whisper, is worth a king's ransom. This meeting is about selling shares in that risk, in that reward. Shiv, the auctioneer, isn't just leading a pirate crew. She's chairing a board meeting from hell. The cove is sound. A burly, bearded man with a missing ear slurs, slamming his fist on the table and making Shiv's neat stack of coins tremble. I've seen it with me own eyes. Sheltered from the trade winds, and the channel's a nightmare of reefs for anyone who don't know the way. Quote, Shiv doesn't look up from her coins. Your eyes, Jedediah, have been pickled in rum for 20 years, she says, her voice low and smooth, yet it cuts through the noise effortlessly. I require more than a drunkard's memory. She finally stops stacking and levels her gaze at him. It's not a harsh look, but it's heavy. It makes the big man shrink in his seat. I have paid for certainty. The charts, the tide tables. Your eyewitness account is merely a bonus. Her greed is a tangible thing, not wild or desperate, but patient and methodical, like a spider spinning a web. She's not just after the treasure, she's after the whole enterprise. She's securing her power, one coin, one promise, one threat at a time. You take another sip of your drink, trying to look anywhere but at that table. Your eyes drift to the other side of the room. There, tucked away at a small, solitary table, is the polar opposite of Shiv's calculated command. A young woman sits hunched over a book, a hood pulled low over her face. Abigail Crane. Abby. You know her name because people only say it in whispers, and always with a glance over their shoulder. She's an informant, but not the kind who sidles up to you with a sly grin. She's introverted, almost invisible. She simply exists in the corners of places like this, watching, listening, absorbing. She seems to be reading, her finger tracing lines of text on a page. But her stillness is a lie. Her curiosity is a weapon. You notice her head is angled just so her ear turns slightly toward Shiv's table. She isn't looking at them. She never looks directly at her subjects. But you can feel her attention stretched taut across the room, a silken, venomous thread connecting her to the boisterous corner. She is the antagonist to Shiv's entire world, not through force, but through information. A carefully placed word to the right magistrate, a whispered rumor to a rival crew, and Shiv's entire plan, the ship, the treasure, the lives of everyone at that table, would crumble into dust and blood. Israel Hands shifts his weight. A floorboard groans. Abby's finger pauses on the page of her book. For a split second, her head lifts, and her eyes, sharp and startlingly perceptive in the dim light, flick up. They don't land on Israel, they don't land on Shiv, they land directly on you. It's just for a moment. A flicker of acknowledgement. There's no malice in her gaze, only a quiet, unnerving assessment. It's the look of someone who has just added a new piece to a very complicated puzzle. She sees you watching them. And in this world of secrets, an unknown observer is a dangerous variable. She holds your gaze for a heartbeat longer than is comfortable, a silent question passing between you. Who are you, and whose side are you on? Then, as quickly as it happened, her attention is gone. Her eyes drop back to her book, her hood shadowing her face once more. She becomes invisible again. But the feeling of being seen, of being catalogued, lingers like a chill down your spine. The raucous laughter from Shiv's table suddenly sounds hollow, brittle. The low hum of the tavern feels heavier, charged with a new and potent danger. You are no longer just a fly on the wall. You are part of the scene. A clandestine meeting to plan a fortune-making crime is unfolding in one corner. A quiet informant is taking notes in another. And you are caught right in the middle, a witness to the spark that is about to ignite it all. You take a slow, deep breath, the air still tasting of salt and secrets, and you wonder if you'll ever be able to breathe anything else again. Your heart gives a frantic lurch, a captured bird beating against your ribs. To be seen is to be known, and to be known in a place like this is to be dead. You force your gaze away from Abigail Crane, dragging it back to the sticky surface of your table as if it were the most fascinating piece of wood in the world. You trace a knot in the grain with your finger, your mind racing. Did she see fear in your eyes? Curiosity? Did she mark you as a potential ally, an enemy, or just a piece of dust to be swept away? You risk another sip of the bitter brew, the liquid doing nothing to quench the dryness in your throat. You focus on your breathing, trying to melt back into the background, to become just another shadow on the wall. The noise from Shiv's table swells again, providing a welcome distraction. The big man Jedediah is not so easily cowed. Certainty? What's more certain than a man's own memory? He bellows, his face flushed with rum and indignation. I tell you, Hangman's Bite is as safe as your mother's arms. Deep water right up to the sand, sheltered by the cliffs on 3 sides. We can have the serpent on her side, and scraped clean before the tide turns twice. Quote, the tide, Shiv says, her voice a silken thread of steel, waits for no man's memory. The charts I acquired, at great personal expense, show a sandbar at the mouth of the Bight, one that only appears on the spring tide, which, if you'll recall from the almanac I also provided, begins in 2 days. She lets the silence hang for a moment, letting the implications sink in. Your safe harbor could become our tomb if we mistime it by a single hour. We get one chance. We go in on the high tide, work through the low, and are gone before the next high tide can trap us. Quote, Israel hands shifts, a subtle movement that draws every eye. He leans down, his lips close to Shiv's ear, and murmurs something you can't possibly hear. She nods, a minute, almost imperceptible motion. The quiet assassin isn't just her shield, he's her counsel, her loyal, reluctant conscience. His presence lends a grim seriousness to the affair that the gold on the table cannot. He knows the true price of failure. And the price for this risk? Another sailor asks, his voice thin and wheezy. He's younger than the others, his face pocked with scars, his eyes gleaming with a desperate, hungry light. Shiv finally leans back, the performance of stacking coins over. She gestures to the pile. This is the initial investment, your shares. Once the sea serpent is swift again, we take the governor's private shipment. Spices, silks, and a small heavy crate he paid a fortune to have disappear from a naval manifest. Her lips curl into that small, predatory smile. We will give him his wish. It will disappear, and the contents will be auctioned. Your share of the risk, she says, her gaze sweeping over each man at the table, will be matched by your share of the reward. A price, I assure you, far too tempting to ignore. A low murmur of assent ripples through the group. Greed, it seems, is a more powerful drink than rum. As they haggle over percentages and duties, your attention is pulled away again. Abigail Crane is moving. She rises from her solitary table with a fluid grace that belies her hunched posture. Her book is tucked under one arm. She drifts toward the bar, not with the swagger of a sailor, but with the silent purpose of a moth drawn to a flame. She leans against the counter, waiting for the barmaid to notice her. You find yourself leaning forward, straining to hear over the din. It's impossible. But you watch. You see Abby slide a coin across the wet wood. A silver shilling, far too much for a drink. The barmaid, a weary woman with tired eyes, pockets it without a word. She leans in, wiping a clean spot on the bar that doesn't need wiping. Abby's voice is a mere whisper, but in a sudden lull in the tavern's noise, a few words drift across the room, clear as a funeral bell. The Dauntless, she murmurs, her head still bowed as if studying the wood grain. Patrols the Southern Channel. New moon, he'll want to know. The barmaid just nods, her expression unchanged, and moves away to serve another customer. The exchange is over in seconds. It was nothing. A piece of harmless gossip. But you know it wasn't. The Dauntless is the Royal Navy's new frigate, the terror of the shipping lanes. And Abby just passed on its patrol schedule, not to Shiv's crew, but to an unknown he. The magistrate? A rival captain? It doesn't matter. The silent, venomous thread you felt earlier has now been anchored. The trap is being set. Abby pushes away from the bar and glides towards the tavern door, melting into the night without a backward glance, leaving you with the chilling certainty that she knows everything. Soon after, Shiv's meeting concludes. Hands are shaken, coins are pocketed, and the conspirators begin to file out, trying to look like common sailors leaving a bar rather than men who have just signed on to commit grand larceny. Shiv is the last to leave, Israel at her side. She pauses at the door, her gaze sweeping the room one last time. It's a look of ownership. Every soul in this grimy tavern, whether they know it or not, is now a part of her ledger. You wait a few moments, your own mug still half full, before pushing your chair back and heading out into the oppressive humidity of the port night. The cool sea air does little to clear your head. It's thick with the smell of tar, fish, and rain-soaked earth. You are drawn, against all better judgment, toward the cacophony of the docks. You find them in a secluded wharf tucked behind a row of dilapidated warehouses. This is where the real work begins. The scene is a frantic, whispered ballet of illicit activity. Lanterns are kept low and hooded, casting swaying pools of light on sweating faces and straining muscles. The crew is indeed a motley collection. You see Jedediah, sober now, directing two younger men as they load barrels of fresh water and salted beef into a longboat. His booming voice is reduced to a harsh, urgent whisper. The nervous, scarred youth from the tavern is there, his hands shaking slightly as he checks the flint and pan of a pistol, his eyes wide in the gloom. You press yourself into the deep shadow of a stack of shipping crates, close enough to hear the scrape of steel in the muttered conversations. Two grizzled pirates are sitting on an overturned barrel, sharpening their cutlasses on a whetstone. The rhythmic shing-shing-shing of metal on stone sets your teeth on edge. She's a cold one, the auctioneer. One of them rasps, not looking up from his work. But her coin is good. Aye, the other replies, testing the edge of his blade with a calloused thumb. And that shadow of hers, hands? I'd sooner fight a kraken. Saw him gut a man in Tortuga once for looking at his boots the wrong way. Didn't even spill his drink. The palpable tension is laced with a grim excitement. These men are sharks who have scented blood and gold in the water. They gather supplies with a grim efficiency born of long practice. Coils of thick rope, blocks and tackle, buckets of foul-smelling tallow for greasing the hull, and canvas patches the size of bed sheets are all passed down a human chain and stowed carefully in the boats. Every weapon is checked. Every knot is tested. They whisper warnings to each other, old superstitions mixed with practical advice. Don't whistle, it'll bring up a squall. Keep your powder dry. Watch your back, not just for the Navy, but for the man next to you when the treasure is finally in hand. You watch as Shiv moves among them, not lifting a single crate, but her presence directing the entire operation. She speaks quietly to a man who appears to be the quartermaster, pointing at a manifest. She is the mind, Israel the sword, and these men are the hands. For a moment you feel a sliver of grudging respect. Her greed isn't just a desire for wealth, it's the engine for this incredible dangerous machine she has built. Israel stands apart from the activity, a silent monolith near the water's edge. He's not looking at the crew. He's looking out into the dark harbor, his gaze fixed on the faint outline of a ship riding at anchor, the captured sea serpent. He is watching for threats, his entire being coiled like a spring, ready to react to the slightest hint of trouble. Ready for a rival crew, for a curious night watchman, for the telltale shape of a naval frigate named the Dauntless. Finally, the longboats are loaded. Jedediah gives a low whistle. The men shoulder their weapons and gather at the edge of the wharf. The whispers die down, replaced by the soft creak of the wooden pilings and the gentle lapping of water. It's time. Shiv turns to them, her face illuminated for a moment by a passing lantern. There's no rousing speech, no call to glory. There is only a single, sharp command. Let's go. Quote. One by one, they climb down into the boats, their movements practiced and silent. The oars are muffled with rags to prevent noise. You watch as Israel helps Shiv into the lead boat, his large hand gentle on her arm. Then he steps in behind her, taking his place in the stern, a dark guardian watching over his charge. You remain in the shadows as the boats push off, gliding across the black water of the harbor like phantoms. The only sounds are the dip of the muffled oars and the faint, rhythmic creak of the oarlocks. They are heading for the sea serpent, for hangman's bite, for a fortune or a watery grave. You are left alone on the wharf, the secrets you've gathered tonight weighing on you like a shroud. You have seen the plan, you have heard the threat, and you have witnessed the departure. The first act is over, and you are inextricably part of the play. You don't stay on the wharf. To stay is to be left behind, and to be left behind now, with the knowledge you carry, is a death sentence of a different kind. Before the last longboat shoves off, while two men are arguing in hushed, angry tones over a coil of rope, you move. A ghost in the gloom, You slip from behind the crates and slide over the edge of the wharf, landing with a soft thud in the stern of the boat, pulling a swath of stiff, greasy canvas over yourself. The reek of tar and stagnant water fills your senses, but you don't dare move. You lie still, your heart a frantic drum against the floorboards, as the men climb in and the boat pushes off into the black. The journey to the Sea Serpent is a short, tense passage through a graveyard of silent ships. You feel the boat glide beneath the looming bowsprit of a merchantman, hear the hushed orders of the man at the tiller. When you bump against the hull of the prize ship, the sound is a dull, hollow boom that seems to echo across the entire harbor. You wait, barely breathing under the canvas, as the pirates clamber aboard one by one, their boots scuffing on the rope ladder. When you feel the boat lift, being hauled up on deck, you know it's your only chance. As it's set down with a clatter, you roll out from under the tarp and scurry into the deepest shadows you can find, wedging yourself behind a stack of water casks near the mainmast. No one sees you. They are too focused, too intent on the task ahead. The ship comes alive with a stealthy, controlled energy. There are no loud commands, only hissed orders that are passed from man to man. You watch the dark figures of the crew move with practiced efficiency, their bare feet silent on the deck. They work the capstan, the rhythmic clank, clank, clank of the pawls. The only loud noise, a sound that makes you flinch with every turn as they weigh the heavy anchor. Israel Hands oversees it all, a predator in his element. He doesn't raise his voice, but a single, sharp gesture is enough to send a man scrambling up the rigging to unfurl a sliver of sail. Shiv stands near the helm, a still point in the flurry of motion. She holds a strange brass and wood instrument in her hand, angling it towards the stars that poke through the thin clouds. She isn't looking at the crew, she is looking at the heavens, at the sea, reading a language you don't understand. She is the navigator, the mind, and her calm is more unnerving than any pirate's roar. As the Sea Serpent catches the offshore breeze and begins to ghost out of the harbor, a new tension settles over the ship. The initial excitement of the venture gives way to the stark reality of the voyage. The wind picks up, a low moan in the rigging that slowly builds to a sharp whistle. The ship begins to pitch and roll in the open sea, the deck canting at steep angles. Salt spray lashes over the railing, cold and stinging against your face, soaking your clothes. It tastes of the immense, indifferent deep. This is where the fear begins to curdle. Jedediah, the man who boasted of his memory, is at the helm now, his knuckles white as he grips the wheel. He keeps glancing at Shiv, his earlier bluster gone, replaced by a nervous sweat that glistens on his brow in the faint moonlight. "The wind's turning foul," a voice growls from the darkness near you. You recognize the grizzled pirate from the wharf. She's pushing us south, right towards the Navy's hunting ground. "Hold your tongue," another man hisses back. The auctioneer knows the course. Her charts? Charts! The first man scoffs, the sound nearly lost in the wind. Pieces of paper. The sea has its own ideas. And that sandbar she mentioned? A wind like this could shift it, could strand us before we even see the cove. You shrink further behind the casks, the whispered words confirming the dread that has been growing in your own gut. Abigail Crane's words echo in your mind. The Dauntless patrols the southern channel. Are they heading right for it? Is this the betrayal? Was Shiv's information bad, or was it a trap from the start? You watch her, but her expression is unreadable, her focus absolute as she confers quietly with Israel. Their bond seems unshakable, but in this world of shifting allegiances, you know that means nothing. Every creak of the ship's timbers sounds like a death knell. Every shadow seems to hold a watching eye. You feel it in the men around you, the subtle shift in their posture, the way they eye each other, the way their hands stray to the hilts of their pistols. The shared greed that bound them together in the tavern is beginning to fray, replaced by individual survival. Hours pass, a miserable eternity of clinging to your hiding spot as the ship fights the sea. Then, just as the moon begins to sink towards the horizon, Shiv gives a sharp command. "Hard to port! Now, Jedediah!" Jedediah wrenches the wheel, his muscles straining. The ship groans in protest, turning to face a wall of sheer black cliffs that seem to have risen from the ocean itself. A dead end. A murmur of panic ripples through the crew. But Shiv is pointing towards a sliver of darkness in the cliff face, a place where the churning surf seems to break differently. A gap no wider than the ship itself. "There," she says, her voice cutting through the wind. The channel. Keep her steady. This is it, the entrance to Hangman's Bite. It's a nightmare. Mist, thick as wool, spills from the gap, shrouding everything in a ghostly white veil. Jagged rocks, like broken teeth, line the narrow passage, and you can hear the roar of the surf as it smashes against them. This is a test of pure skill. One mistake, one misjudgment of the wind or the current, and the sea serpent will be torn to splinters. You hold your breath, your fingers digging into the rough wood of the casks. You watch the crew, their fear forgotten, replaced by a focused intensity. They work the sails with frantic precision, trimming them to catch the slightest shift in the wind, their movements guided by Jedediah's roared commands and Shiv's calm, precise corrections. Israel stands near the bow, his dark eyes piercing the mist, calling out warnings as rocks loom out of the gloom. For a few terrifying minutes, they are a single organism, a perfect machine of wood, canvas, and desperate men, fighting to guide their prize through the jaws of the earth. Then, silence. The roar of the open sea is gone, replaced by an unnerving quiet. The wind dies, and the mist begins to thin. The ship glides into a lagoon of perfectly still, black water. You risk a look over the top of the casks. You've entered a hidden world. Sheer jungle-choked cliffs rise on all sides, enclosing a crescent of pale white sand. A waterfall tumbles from the clifftop in a silver ribbon, its gentle splash the only sound in the cove. It's beautiful, a lost paradise. But the shadows are deep and absolute, and the silence feels watchful, ancient. This isn't a sanctuary, it's a cage. A place to hide, but also a place from which there may be no escape. The delicate dance begins. The tide is high, lapping at the edge of the beach. Under Shiv's direction, they drop a stern anchor in the deep water of the lagoon. Ropes as thick as your arm are run from the mainmast to a massive, gnarled tree at the edge of the jungle. The crew, waist-deep in the surprisingly warm water, heave on the lines, their grunts and curses echoing in the stillness. The ship is slowly, carefully winched sideways, its hull scraping against the sandy bottom. You watch, mesmerized by the sheer, brutal effort. They are fighting the ship, the sea, and time itself. The goal is to pull the ship so far onto the shore that when the tide recedes, it will fall onto its side, exposing the hull. It's a maneuver of immense risk. If they miscalculate, the ship's back could break. Finally, with a tremendous groan of straining timber that seems to shake the very air, the sea serpent lurches and lists heavily to port. It settles onto the sand, leaning at an impossible angle, its deck a steep, dangerous slope. The tide has turned. The sea begins its slow retreat, leaving the great ship stranded and helpless, like a dying whale. The work starts immediately. There is no rest. Hooded lanterns are lit, casting a hellish, flickering glow on the scene. Men slide down ropes to the exposed hull, their bare feet finding purchase on the slick, barnacle-encrusted wood. They carry heavy iron scrapers, adzes, and buckets of stinking tallow. The first scrape of metal on the hull is a hideous, grating shriek that sets your teeth on edge. Then another joins it, and another, until the air is filled with the sound. The foul stench of disturbed marine life, of rot and decay, fills the cove. Under the soft light of the stars and the harsh glare of the lanterns, the pirates begin their filthy, back-breaking labor. They are committed now. The sea serpent is immobile, vulnerable, a sitting duck in a hidden pond. As you watch them toil, a single, cold thought solidifies in your mind. Abigail Crane knows about the Dauntless, and you are trapped here with a crew who doesn't. The tide is going out, and with it, all chance of a quick escape. The clock has started ticking. The work is a descent into a special kind of hell. The scraping is relentless, a chorus of shrieking metal that digs into your skull. With every passing hour, the tide retreats further, revealing more of the ship's fouled underbelly. The hull is a grotesque tapestry of green slime, razor-sharp barnacles, and thick, clinging seaweed that stinks of brine and decay. Men work by the swinging, uncertain light of the lanterns, their bodies slick with sweat and grime. Their curses are low and guttural, lost in the din of their labor. From your cramped space behind the casks, you watch the scene unfold, the foul air coating the back of your throat. Mistrust, you realize, is a fungus that thrives in such conditions. It starts in the whispers. You see the two grizzled pirates, the one who'd sooner fight a kraken than Israel hands, pause in their work. One gestures with his scraper towards Shiv, who stands on the canted deck above, observing their progress like a hawk on a cliff. "She watches us toil while she stays clean," he mutters, his voice a low rasp you can just barely catch. "We do the work, bleed on the hull, and she takes the lion's share. Is that the bargain you remember?" Quote, "The bargain was gold," his companion grunts, not stopping his scraping. "The color's the same no matter whose hands it comes from. Keep your head down." Her shadow is listening. He glances up, not at Shiv, but at the silent, hulking form of Israel Hands, who now stands near the base of the mainmast, his gaze sweeping over the workers on the hull. He is a shepherd, and his flock is made of wolves. The tension isn't just among the common hands. Jedediah, his face flushed with exertion and renewed arrogance, scrambles up a rope ladder to the deck. "The forward planking is riddled with shipworm," he says, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "Worse than we thought. We'll need to replace the whole section. It'll add half a day to the work." Quote, Shiv doesn't turn to face him. She is examining the tautness of the ropes holding the mast, her focus seemingly elsewhere. "We don't have half a day," she replies, her voice cool and dismissive. "Patch it. Tallow and canvas will hold until we reach a friendly port." "Patch it!" Jedediah sputters, his pride wounded. "A patch won't hold in a real storm. This is my trade, woman. I know wood." Quote, "And I," Shiv says, finally turning to look at him, her eyes dark and flat in the lantern light. "No schedules. The tide returns in 7 hours. The ship will be floating, or it will be sunk. There is no third option. Patch it." Quote, Jedediah stares at her, his jaw working silently. He looks around at the other men, searching for support, but finds only faces averted or staring blankly back. He is a captain without a crew. Defeated, he turns and slides back down the rope, his movements angry and clumsy. You see him land on the sand and snatch a scraper from the nervous, scarred youth, shoving him aside. He attacks the hull with a fury that is meant for Shiv, the shrieking of his scraper, a wordless scream of frustration. The seed of mutiny, you sense, has been planted and watered. The night deepens, the stars wheeling overhead in a silent, indifferent sky. The work slows as exhaustion sets in. Men slump against the hull, sharing swigs from flasks, their conversations turning sullen and clipped. The initial adrenaline of the heist has burned away, leaving only aching muscles and the grim reality of their trap. And it is a trap. You feel it in your bones, a certainty colder than the night air. That's when you see the movement. At the far end of the beach, where the jungle meets the sand, a shadow detaches itself from the deeper darkness under the trees. It's a small figure, moving with a silent, deliberate confidence that does not belong here. Your breath catches in your throat. It's her. Abigail Crane steps into the flickering perimeter of the lantern light. She isn't armed, she isn't threatening, yet her appearance sends a shockwave of silence through the cove. The scraping stops. The muttering dies. Every man freezes, turning to stare at the impossible apparition. How did she find this place? How did she get past whatever watch was set? Israel Hands reacts first. He doesn't shout in alarm. He simply moves. One moment he is by the mast. The next he is a flowing shadow, placing himself between Abby and Shiv, a cutlass appearing in his hand as if by magic. Abby shows no fear. She stops just out of his reach, her hood still pulled low. A small, knowing smile touches her lips. "There's no need for that, Mr. Hands," she says, her quiet voice carrying with unnerving clarity in the sudden stillness. "I'm not here to fight." "State your purpose," Shiv calls down from the deck, her voice tight with a cold fury. The unnerving calm has finally fractured. "And make it quick." "My purpose?" Abby tilts her head, as if considering the question. "I'm merely an observer." "And an agent. I'm here to renegotiate the terms of your enterprise." She pushes her hood back, revealing her pale face and sharp, intelligent eyes. Her gaze sweeps over the assembled pirates, lingering for a moment on Jedediah, then on the scarred youth, who looks ready to faint. "She didn't tell you, did she?" Quote, "Tell us what, witch?" Jedediah growls, stepping forward, his scraper held like a club. "About the crate," Abby says, her eyes locking onto his. "The small, heavy crate from the governor's manifest. She told you it was gold, I imagine? Or jewels?" She lets the question hang in the air. "It's not. It's letters of marque. Blank ones. Signed and sealed by the king himself. Official permission to hunt pirates, with the governor's signature ready to be added." He wasn't having them disappeared. He was sending them to the captain of the Dauntless. Quote, "The silence that follows is absolute, heavier than any sound. The men stare, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning horror." "She lies!" the scarred youth suddenly shrieks, his voice cracking. "She's a liar!" Quote, Abby turns her serene, chilling gaze on him. "Am I, Thomas? You didn't think it was odd that I knew which path through the swamp led to the back of this cove? The path you showed me yesterday for a handful of silver?" Quote. Thomas shrinks back as if struck, the eyes of every pirate turning on him. He is marked. "This is a pirate hunter's bonus," Abby continues, her voice like a surgeon's scalpel, dissecting the crew's fragile alliance. "The frigate Dauntless isn't on a random patrol. It will be here at dawn. I told them where to find you. Captain Blackwood is a reasonable man. He will hang a few of you to set an example. The captain, certainly," she says with a nod toward Shiv, and her monstrous pet. Her eyes flick to Israel. "But he might be lenient with the men who help him recover the king's property. The men who hand her over." Chaos erupts. It isn't a battle cry. It's a panicked roar of betrayal. Jedediah is the first to move. "You lying bitch," he bellows, but he doesn't charge at Abby. He lunges for the rope ladder leading to the deck, his target clear. Shiv. He never makes it. Israel Hands moves with a speed that is simply inhuman for a man his size. He intercepts Jedediah not with his cutlass but with his fist. The sound is like a side of beef hitting a butcher's block. Jedediah crumples to the sand, unconscious, but the spell is broken. The two grizzled pirates draw their blades. "The letters!" one of them yells. "Get the letters!" They don't attack Shiv or Israel. They turn on the men closest to them, the ones who stand between them and the ship's hold. A wild, desperate melee explodes on the beach. It's not a fight of allies against enemies. It's a frenzied scramble of individuals, a storm of fists, knives, and scraping irons. A man screams as a blade opens his arm. Another is tackled into the shallow water. A third is bludgeoned with a block of wood. The fight spills across the sand, a whirlwind of desperate violence moving straight towards your hiding place. A pirate, his face a mask of blood and terror, is thrown against the very casks you're hiding behind. The impact shudders through your body. You have to move. You scramble out from the other side, stumbling onto the canted deck, exposed in the flickering lamplight. For a moment, the chaos seems to freeze. You are standing in the open, the brawl raging on the sand below you. Shiv is just a few feet away, her back to you, her attention fixed on the pandemonium her greed has unleashed. Israel is a whirlwind of controlled violence below, disarming men with brutal efficiency, trying to impose order on pure anarchy. And then, through it all, you see Abigail Crane. She hasn't moved. She stands at the edge of the chaos, an artist observing her masterpiece of destruction. Her eyes lift from the brawl and find yours. There is no surprise in her expression, no curiosity. There is only the cold, flat acknowledgement of a player who has just noticed another piece on the board. She sees you, and in that moment you know with chilling certainty that you are never just an observer. You are always part of her calculation. The tide is coming in, the navy is on its way, and you are trapped on a broken ship, caught between a betrayed auctioneer and the woman who orchestrated it all. Abby Crane's eyes are not weapons. They are scales. And in that frozen moment, you feel yourself being weighed, measured, and filed away. You are not a threat, not an ally, just a piece of data. An anomaly. Her gaze holds you for a second that stretches into an agonizing eternity. And then, with an almost imperceptible dismissal, she looks away, her attention returning to the beautiful, bloody chaos she has orchestrated on the sand below. She has her prize. You are irrelevant. For now. That dismissal is the only permission you need. The deck beneath your feet is a stage, and you are caught in the hot, white glare of the lanterns. A wild-eyed pirate, disarmed by Israel, scrambles backward up the sandy slope of the beached hull, trying to escape the assassin's methodical advance. His eyes, wide with terror, find yours. He sees a path. He sees an obstacle. He lunges, not for you, but for the stacked water casks you just vacated, hoping to topple them onto the combatants below. You don't think. You dive sideways, crashing hard against the canted railing. Splinters dig into your palms. The pirate's shove sends the top cask tumbling. It rolls down the steep deck, gathering momentum before launching into the air and smashing onto the beach with the sound of a bursting melon. Men scatter, cursing. The distraction is all you have. You crawl on hands and knees toward the stern, staying low, the screams and the sickening crunch of bone on bone a soundtrack to your desperate flight. Shiv is there, near the helm, a long-barreled pistol now gripped in her hand. Her unnerving calm has been burned away, leaving something hard and brittle in its place. Her face is a mask of incandescent rage. She is not watching the mutiny with fear, but with the fury of a master artisan whose perfect creation has been deliberately smashed. "Fools!" she screams, her voice a raw tear in the fabric of the night. "You're fighting over scraps! The prize is the ship, you idiots! Our speed!" No one is listening. They are possessed by a more immediate demon, betrayal. You have to get off the ship. You slither to the rope ladder that Thomas, the traitorous youth, used to betray his guide. Below, the fight has devolved into a swirling knot of bodies. But near the ladder's base, there's a small pocket of relative calm. You see Thomas, the boy who sold the path for silver, trying to crawl away from the melee. He's weeping, babbling pleas for mercy. The grizzled pirate with the freshly sharpened cutlass, the one who'd rather fight a kraken, spots him. There's no malice in the pirate's face, only a grim practicality. He steps over a fallen body, raises his blade, and brings it down. Thomas's weeping stops. You swallow the bile that rises in your throat and swing your legs over the side, your hands gripping the rough hemp of the ladder. You scramble down, your feet finding purchase just as two men crash against the hull beneath you, one driving a knife into the other's ribs. You leap the last few feet, landing in the soft, wet sand, the shallow water soaking your boots. The air is thick with the coppery tang of blood. You are in the arena now. A body lies at your feet, face down in the water, his shirt a spreading stain of dark red. You stumble back, gagging, and turn to run. Your only thought is the jungle, the path. Abby stands serene and untouched at one end of the beach, a queen surveying her victory. You bolt in the opposite direction, toward the waterfall and the wall of tangled green she must have emerged from. You run, head down, splashing through the shallows where the water is pinkish in the lantern light. You are a ghost, a nobody, and your anonymity is your only shield. A figure lurches out of the chaos directly into your path. It's the nervous, scarred sailor from the tavern, the one who challenged Shiv over the shares. His face is a bloody mess, one eye swollen shut, but the other is wide with a singular, desperate purpose. He's clutching a canvas sack. He must have broken into the captain's cabin. He thinks he has the letters. He doesn't see you as a threat. He barely sees you at all. He just sees something in his way. He shoves you hard, sending you sprawling into the water, and continues his mad dash toward the jungle. He doesn't get 10 feet. A gunshot cracks through the cove, loud and definitive. The sailor pitches forward, landing face first in the sand, the canvas sack falling from his grasp. You look back toward the ship. Shiv stands on the deck, the pistol in her hand smoking, her expression one of cold, absolute finality. She has restored a sliver of her authority with a single ball of lead. But the shot has drawn every eye, and now you are on your hands and knees in the water, halfway between the fight and the trees, caught in the sudden, shocked silence. Israel Hands is turning his head, his dark gaze sweeping the beach. Shiv is reloading her pistol. Time is up. You don't wait. You push yourself up and sprint, a desperate, lung-bursting run for the dark maw of the jungle. You expect another shot, a shout, the thud of running feet behind you. Nothing comes. The mutineers are frozen, caught between the immediate threat of Shiv's pistol and the looming, unknown terror of the approaching dawn. That single moment of hesitation is all you are given, and you seize it. You plunge past the waterfall, the fine mist clinging to your skin, and into the oppressive darkness under the canopy. The sounds of the cove are instantly muffled, replaced by the chirping of insects and the drip of water from unseen leaves. You don't see a path. You make one, crashing through ferns and thorny vines that tear at your clothes and skin. The ground is a treacherous soup of mud and gnarled roots. You fall, your hands sinking into the cool, damp earth, and scramble up again, gasping for breath. Panic is a hot wire in your chest. You are running blind, fueled by pure terror. After what feels like an eternity, you stumble onto something solid. A line of stones, barely visible in the gloom. It's a path. A crude, overgrown trail leading up the side of the cliff. This must be it. You follow it, your hands grabbing at roots and rocks to pull yourself upward. The climb is steep and punishing. Your lungs burn, your muscles scream, but the sounds of the fight are fading below, and that is all that matters. Near the top of the ridge, you stop, leaning against a moss-covered boulder to catch your breath. Against all reason, you look back. From here, you can see the entire cove laid out below like a grim diorama. The lanterns still flicker, casting long, dancing shadows. The brawl has died down. Bodies, living and dead, litter the white sand. Israel Hands stands like a colossus in the center of it all, his cutlass dripping. A small, defeated group of pirates, including the two grizzled ones, are on their knees, their hands bound. Jedediah is being hauled to his feet, groaning. Shiv is no longer on the ship. She is on the beach, standing over the dead sailor, kicking the canvas sack with the toe of her boot. She is no longer a calm auctioneer or a furious commander. She is just a survivor, surveying the wreckage of her ambition. Abigail Crane is gone, having vanished back into the shadows she commands. Then you see it. Beyond the narrow channel that guards the cove, the sky is no longer black, but a bruised purple. Dawn. And on that purple horizon, silhouetted against the first light of day, is a shape. It's unmistakable. The tall masts, the square-rigged sails, the lean, predatory profile of a naval frigate, the Dauntless. It is bearing down on the cove with an inexorable certainty. A silent, final judgment. The trap has sprung. The tide is coming in. And with it, the hangman. You see Shiv look up. You see her see the ship. You see her shoulders slump. A barely perceptible movement, but one that speaks of absolute, soul-crushing defeat. She has won the battle on the beach, but she has lost everything. A cold dread, entirely different from the hot panic of the fight, settles deep in your bones. You have seen it all. You know who set the trap and who walked into it. You are a loose thread in Abby's immaculate tapestry, a witness Shiv can't afford to have. You are no longer irrelevant. You turn your back on the cove and the rising sun. You don't walk. You run. You flee into the whispering green labyrinth of the jungle, leaving the sounds of the sea and the screams of the damned behind you. You have escaped the cage, but you know, with a certainty that chills you to the core, that the hunt has just begun. The jungle doesn't care about your fear. It offers no sanctuary, only a deeper, more primal kind of dread. You run until your lungs are twin fires in your chest and your legs are leaden weights. Thorns rip at your skin, leaving a crisscross of bloody trails on your arms and face. The humid air is a wet cloth pressed to your mouth, suffocating. You have no idea which way you're going, only that you are moving away from the dawn, away from the sight of that frigate, away from the sounds of a dream dying in a bloody sunrise. Every snap of a twig behind you is Israel Hand's footstep. Every shadow in your periphery is Abigail Crane, watching. Hours bleed into one another. The sun climbs, its heat turning the jungle into a sweltering steam bath. Thirst is a physical pain, a rasp in your throat and a pounding in your skull. You stumble upon a small, brackish stream and drink greedily, not caring what might be lurking in the water. The taste is earthy and foul, but it's life. You follow the stream, logic dictating that water eventually leads to people, and people lead to a port. The logic feels thin, a desperate prayer in a godless wilderness. Finally, late in the afternoon, the oppressive canopy begins to thin. You hear a distant sound, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Hope, an emotion you thought had been scoured from you, flickers weakly. You push through a final curtain of thick, waxy leaves and find yourself on a muddy track overlooking the port. It's all there, laid out below you. The familiar maze of crooked streets, the forest of masts in the harbor, the haze of smoke from 100 chimneys and cook fires. It is the same town you left less than a day ago, but looking at it now is like looking at a stranger's face. Everything is tainted. You don't enter through the main gates. You are a mess of dried blood, mud, and torn cloth. You look like a survivor, and survivors attract questions. Instead, you slip through the warren of alleyways behind the fish market, the stench of rotting guts a welcome assault that overpowers the smell of your own fear. The town is alive with its usual cacophony. Sailors shouting, merchants hawking wares, the distant sound of a fiddle playing a jaunty tune from a tavern door. The normality of it is grotesque, These people laugh and trade and drink, oblivious to the massacre that took place just a few miles away in a hidden cove. You see a group of naval officers, their blue coats and white breeches impossibly clean, striding down the main thoroughfare. They walk with an air of confident authority. Are they from the Dauntless? Has word already reached the port? You shrink back into the shadows of an archway, your heart hammering against your ribs. One of them laughs, a hearty, booming sound, and you see Jedediah's face, flushed with rum and arrogance, just before Israel's fist ended his rebellion. You feel sick. Every face in the crowd is a potential ghost. A young woman with a book tucked under her arm passes by, and you flinch, bile rising in your throat before you realize her face is round and kind, nothing like Abby's sharp, calculating features. Two men get into a heated argument over a spilled drink, their voices rising in anger, and you are back on the beach, watching the grizzled pirates turn on their shipmates, the shared greed curdling into murderous panic. The pirate world, you now understand, isn't a grand adventure of freedom and rebellion. It's a meat grinder, fueled by desperation and chewing on the souls of the damned. Shiv, Abby, the governor, the Navy, they aren't opposites. They are just different parts of the same brutal machine. You need a place to hide, to think, to simply stop moving. Your feet, acting on some grim magnetic pull, lead you back to the one place where it all began. The Salty Dog. Pushing open the heavy wooden door feels like stepping back into a nightmare. The tavern is quieter now, in the lull of the late afternoon. The air is the same, thick with stale rum and secrets, but it feels heavier, colder. The same barmaid with the weary eyes is wiping the same counter. A few patrons are scattered at the tables, nursing drinks in silence. The boisterous chaos of last night is gone, leaving a hollow, expectant vacuum. You slide into a dark, secluded booth, the one where Abby Crane sat, and watched the world unravel. The irony is not lost on you. You pull your hood low, trying to make yourself as small and insignificant as she did. The barmaid brings you a tankard of what might be ale without you even asking. She places it on the table and looks at you, her gaze lingering for a moment too long. There's a flicker of recognition in her tired eyes. Or maybe you're just projecting your own paranoia onto her. Did she notice you last night? Did Abby say something to her about the stranger watching from the corner? Rough night? She asks, her voice flat, devoid of real curiosity. It's the kind of question that expects no answer. You could say that, you murmur, your voice a hoarse crackle. She nods once as if this explains everything and moves away. You are left alone with your drink and your ghosts. You wrap your trembling hands around the cool pewter, the weight of it, a small, solid anchor in a sea of swirling chaos. You stare into the murky liquid, and the images come flooding back, unbidden and sharp as broken glass. You see Shiv standing on the deck with the smoking pistol, her face not triumphant, but empty. She hadn't just put down a mutiny. She had executed a piece of her own failed ambition. Her cool, methodical greed was her armor, and Abby had found the chink in it, not with a blade, but with a word. You wonder what she did when she saw the Dauntless on the horizon. Did she fight? Did she surrender? Did she stare into the face of Captain Blackwood and try to auction her way out of a noose? The thought is absurd, but you can almost picture it. You see Israel Hands, the quiet furnace of intensity, moving through the brawl with the grace of a predator. He was loyal, protective. But what was he protecting? Shiv herself? Or the idea she represented? The chance at a fortune? You remember the story from the wharf, gutting a man for looking at his boots. Was his care for Shiv real, or was she just the most valuable asset he had ever been tasked with guarding? He was a monster, yes. But he was their monster. And in the end, it wasn't enough. And Abby. You see her standing at the edge of the violence, her faint smile a portrait of intellectual satisfaction. She hadn't thrown a punch or fired a shot, but her hands were bloodier than anyone's. She hadn't fought for gold or for survival, but for the pleasure of control, for the perfect execution of a plan. She had used Thomas's desperation, Jedediah's pride, and the crew's greed as her weapons. She was an artist, and human frailty was her paint. You now know that to be seen by her is to be added to her palette. She saw you. You are now a color she has yet to use. You take a long, slow drink of the ale. It's bitter, but it washes away some of the dust and grime from your throat. The morality of it all is a tangled, ugly knot. Was Shiv's crew any worse than the governor who used the king's authority as a bargaining chip in a back-alley deal? Was the Navy's justice, delivered from the cannons of a frigate, any nobler than the pirate's knife in the dark? It all felt the same. A desperate, violent scramble for power, for control, for one more day of drawing breath in a world that was trying to drown you. You were just a traveler, a face in the crowd. You had wanted to get your bearings. Now you have them. The compass points to no safe harbor, no righteous cause. It just spins wildly in the center of a storm. The front door of the tavern swings open, letting in a shaft of late afternoon sun that illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air. A man steps in, and the low hum of the tavern ceases. He is dressed in the simple, rough-spun clothes of a dock worker, but he carries himself differently. He is clean, his eyes are sharp, and they sweep the room with a practiced, assessing gaze that misses nothing. He isn't looking for a drink, he's looking for someone. His eyes pass over the patrons, over the barmaid, and then they find your booth. They find you. He doesn't look at you with the cold calculation of Abigail Crane or the predatory intensity of Israel Hands. His expression is unreadable, professional. But you know with a sudden, gut-wrenching certainty that you are the one he is looking for. Your anonymity is gone. The aftermath is over. The consequences are just beginning. Your blood turns to ice water. His gaze doesn't threaten. It registers. It's the look a clerk gives a line item on a long ledger. A moment of acknowledgement before the final accounting. You are no longer a face in the crowd. You are an entry, a name, known or unknown, it doesn't matter, on a list. He holds your eyes for a count of 3, a silent, chilling confirmation that your anonymity is a shattered ruin. Then he turns his head, breaking the connection as if you were of no further consequence, and strolls to the bar. He doesn't order. He simply places a single, heavy gold coin on the damp wood. The barmaid, her face a practiced mask of weary indifference, pauses in her wiping. Her eyes flick from the coin to the man, then, with a dreadful slowness, to you. The man gives a minute, almost imperceptible nod, not to her, but in your direction. Then he turns and walks out, disappearing into the afternoon light, leaving the door to swing shut with a soft groan. The transaction is complete. A message has been delivered, not in a sealed letter, but in a shared, terrifying glance. It says, "We know where you are. Stay put." Every instinct screams at you to do the opposite. You throw a few copper coins onto the table, the clatter loud in the suddenly oppressive silence of the room. You push yourself from the booth, your legs unsteady, and flee the tavern. You don't look back at the barmaid, at the gold coin that sits on the bar like a poison drop, at the ghosts that now own the place. You burst out onto the street, blinking in the harsh sun, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. The air outside is electric. The normal, chaotic rhythm of the port has changed. The jaunty fiddle music is gone. The merchants' calls are strained, their eyes darting nervously down the street. The change is subtle at first, just a low hum of anxiety beneath the surface, but it's growing, spreading like a fever through the town's veins. You hear snippets of conversation, words caught on the wind that make the hairs on your arms stand up. Heard it was the Dauntless. A fisherman mutters to another as they mend their nets. Caught 'em red-handed careening the prize ship. Quote, ... Kelly the auctioneer, a woman whispers, clutching her market basket. They say she was the ringleader. Had that beast hands with her. Quote, ... Hanged from the fort walls by tomorrow's tide, the lot of them. The governor's making an example. Quote. The whispers become a torrent, a river of rumor and fear flooding the cobbled streets. You push through the thickening crowds, trying to be invisible. But every sideways glance feels like an accusation. Everyone is looking at everyone else, sizing them up, wondering who might have drunk with Shiv's crew, who might have sold them supplies, who might know something worth a few pieces of silver. The social fabric of the town is unraveling, thread by greedy, fearful thread. You are drawn toward the town square, where the crowd is thickest, their faces upturned. At its center, standing on the steps of the customs house, is a man in the crisp uniform of the town guard, a long scroll in his hand. His voice, amplified by the unnatural quiet, rings out over the square with cold, hard clarity. By order of His Excellency Governor Woodes Rogers, he bellows, his voice cracking with self-importance. Let it be known, the pirate vessel known as the Sea Serpent, under the command of the seditious auctioneer Siobhan Shiv Kelly and her monstrous accomplice Israel Hands, was intercepted this morning at dawn by His Majesty's frigate, Dauntless. Quote, a collective gasp ripples through the crowd. The whispers were true. The aforementioned Kelly, Hands, and the surviving members of their mutinous crew have been taken into custody and await the swift and certain justice of the Crown. The crier continues, let this be a warning to all who would consort with pirates, thieves, and enemies of peace and commerce. The governor's mercy has its limits. Quote, he pauses, letting the threats settle over the silent, upturned faces. Furthermore, Governor Rogers offers a reward of 50 pieces of 8 for information leading to the capture of any collaborators or escaped crew members still at large. A further 20 pieces of 8 for any man who can provide testimony against these villains. Let loyalty to the Crown be your guide and your prophet. Quote, the spell of silence is broken. A murmur spreads, then grows into a cacophony of excited, avaricious chatter. 50 pieces of 8. For many here, that is more money than they will see in a year. The man next to you, a cooper with flour on his apron, turns to his friend. Jedediah was at the Dog last night. Flush with coin, he says, his voice low and conspiratorial. Said he'd signed on for a big venture. His friend shushes him, but the seed is planted. Neighbors look at neighbors with new eyes. Every stranger is a potential bounty. Every familiar face is a potential traitor. Panic claws at your throat. You have to get out. The docks are your only hope, a desperate chance to stow away on an outbound merchant ship. You turn from the square and force your way through the crowd, heading toward the harbor. But the way is no longer clear. At the intersection leading to the main wharf, a barricade has been erected. 2 naval marines from the Dauntless, their blue coats stark against the grimy backdrop of the town, stand with muskets at the ready. Local magistrate in a sweat-stained wig is stopping everyone who tries to pass, his voice a nasal drone of authority. Your papers. State your business at the docks. No vessel leaves this harbor without a thorough inspection by order of the governor. Quote, you freeze, melting back into the mouth of a narrow alley. The trap is closing. The city is being sealed. To approach that checkpoint, dressed as you are, with the mud of the jungle still on your boots and the terror of the last 24 hours carved into your face, would be suicide. You turn and plunge deeper into the labyrinth of backstreets. The stench of garbage and desperation your only cover. The alleyways are a world of their own, a shadow city where sunlight rarely touches the ground. You move quickly, trying to circle around toward the less patrolled fishing wharves. As you round a corner, you almost collide with 2 men from the town watch. They aren't on patrol, they are working. One holds a bucket of foul-smelling paste, the other a stack of freshly printed broadsheets. He slaps one against the grimy brick wall, smoothing it down with a wet brush. You press yourself into a darkened doorway, holding your breath. He moves on, and you creep forward to look. It's a wanted poster. A crude woodcut image stares back at you. The artist has captured Shiv's cold, assessing gaze with unnerving accuracy. Below it, the words scream in thick black ink, backquote wanted, dead or alive, Siobhan Shiv, Kelly, pirate, traitor, backquote. The man slaps another one next to it, this one a monstrous caricature of a huge hulking brute, more beast than man, backquote, Israel Hands, murderer, backquote. Your blood runs cold. This is real. This is happening. They are hunting ghosts. Then the watchman pulls another sheet from his stack. This one is different. There is no picture. There is only a blank space where a face should be. And beneath it, stark, damning letters. Backquote, reward? Backquote. For information leading to the whereabouts of a witness, backquote. Backquote, sought for questioning in the matter of the pirate Kelly, backquote. Backquote. Last seen in the company of the accused at the Salty Dog Tavern, backquote. Backquote, inquire with the governor's office at the customs house, backquote. You stare at the blank space, and it stares back at you. It's your face. It's your death sentence. You are no longer an anomaly, a loose thread. You are a named player in their game, a piece they need to take off the board. The man in the tavern wasn't just delivering a message. He was confirming his target. The sound of marching feet echoes from the end of the alley. A patrol. Heavy boots on wet cobblestones, the rhythmic clink of military equipment. There's nowhere to go. The alley is a dead end, blocked by a high stone wall slick with green slime. You are cornered. You press yourself back into the deepest shadows of the doorway, trying to will yourself into the very brick and mortar. The footsteps grow louder, closer. A lantern swings, its light cutting a sharp yellow swath across the alley, moving inexorably toward you. This is it. This is the end. The city is a cage, and the hunters are closing in. The sun is setting, and the long, cold night ahead promises no escape, only the final terrifying capture. The lantern's beam slices through the grime, painting a moving rectangle of yellow light on the opposite wall. It climbs higher, catching on the glistening slime, illuminating the dead end of your life. The footfalls are slow, methodical. They are not in a hurry. They know you are trapped. Your back is pressed so hard against the rough brick of the doorway. You can feel every jagged edge through your thin shirt. Your breath is a trapped bird in your chest, fluttering, silent. There is no escape. But that is a lie. There is always an escape, however desperate, however slim. Your eyes, wide with terror, dart up the wall at your back. It's high, but not impossible. A rusty drainpipe, slick with moisture and God knows what else, runs from the roof to a fetid puddle a few feet from where you stand. It's your only chance. A suicidal, pathetic, singular chance. The patrol rounds the corner. You see the silhouette of the first man, the glint of his musket barrel in the lantern's glow. You don't wait for him to see you. You lunge from the doorway, your feet splashing in the foul water, and leap for the drainpipe. Your hands, slick with sweat and fear, grab hold. The metal is cold and greasy, and for a terrifying second, you think your grip will fail. The pipe groans in protest, pulling away from the wall with a shriek of tortured metal. What was that? A voice barks from below. The lantern beam swings wildly, searching. You press your body against the brick, finding a meager foothold on a protruding stone. You haul yourself up, muscles screaming, the rough texture of the wall scraping your cheek. Another heave. Your fingers, raw and bleeding, find the lip of a window ledge. The lantern beam sweeps past, inches below your dangling feet. You hold your breath, your heart a hammering drum that feels loud enough to betray you. Rats, another voice says, dismissive. This whole damn city is crawling with them. Let's go. Nothing here. The footsteps recede. The light fades. You hang there for a long moment, suspended between the filth below and the uncertain safety above, every muscle trembling with adrenaline and exertion. Slowly, painfully, you pull yourself up onto the narrow ledge. You crouch there, gasping for air, the coppery taste of your own blood in your mouth. You've escaped the alley. Now you just have to escape the city. From the ledge, you can see the rooftops, a jumbled, chaotic landscape of slate tiles, precarious chimneys, and sagging timbers stretching out under the bruised twilight sky. It's another kind of wilderness. You crawl from the ledge onto the pitched roof, your boots slipping on the slick tiles. Below, the city is a grid of fear, patrolled and watched. Up here, you are a ghost, moving through a world of wind and shadows. You scramble from one rooftop to the next, leaping across dark chasms that open onto the street below, your only guide the distant, unchanging sound of the sea. This high-wire act cannot last. A loose tile clatters down into an alley, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the tense quiet. You freeze, listening, but hear no ensuing alarm. It's too risky. You need to go lower, deeper. You find a section of roof that has rotted through, a gaping hole that looks down into the blackness of an abandoned warehouse. You lower yourself through, your feet finding the top of a tall stack of crates. The air inside is stale, thick with the smell of dust and decay. You make your way to the ground floor and find what you are looking for, a large iron grate set into the stone floor. A sewer entrance. The stench that rises to meet you is unimaginable, a physical assault of human waste and putrefaction. It is the smell of the city's secret underbelly, its forgotten rot. But it is also the smell of a path no sane person would follow. You find a crowbar leaning against a wall, and with a grunt of effort, pry the heavy grate open. Without a moment's hesitation, you descend the iron rungs into the utter, stinking blackness. The journey beneath the city is a waking nightmare. You wade through thigh-deep, viscous liquid, the cold ooze seeping into your boots, your clothes. The only light is what filters through the grates in the streets above, casting pale, geometric patterns on the foul water. Unseen things brush against your legs. Rats, huge and bold, skitter along the curved walls, their eyes gleaming like tiny red coals in the gloom. You hear the city above you, a muffled world of voices, cartwheels, and marching feet. You are beneath it all, a part of its filth, moving toward the harbor not as a person but as refuse being washed out to sea. You lose all track of time. Hours pass in the suffocating darkness. Finally, you see a larger opening ahead, a round eye of gray light, the main outflow pipe. You push toward it, the current growing stronger, pulling you toward the sea. You emerge, gasping, into the cool night air, stumbling out onto a muddy, reed-choked bank. You have bypassed the checkpoints, the guards, the city itself. You are free. You look back just once. The port is a smear of flickering lights against the dark curve of the land, a festering wound you have just crawled out of. You turn your back on it and plunge into the whispering reeds of the marshland, the soft mud sucking at your boots. The wilderness welcomes you not with sanctuary, but with a different kind of hostility. The air, free of the city's stench, is now thick with the buzz of mosquitoes. They descend upon you in a cloud, their high-pitched whine a maddening symphony, their bites raising fiery welts on every inch of your exposed skin. For 2 days, you are a hunted animal. You move at night, sleeping in fitful, paranoid bursts during the day in the deepest thicket you can find. You live on brackish water scooped from stagnant pools and the few bitter, unfamiliar berries you dare to eat. Hunger becomes a dull, constant ache in your belly, a fire that consumes you from within. The fear of pursuit is your shadow. Once, hiding in a cluster of cypress trees, you watch a patrol of 4 men, their naval coats, a terrifying splash of blue against the green landscape, pass less than 100 yards from your hiding place. They have dogs with them, their low bays echoing across the swamp, a sound that chills you to the bone. They are not just guarding the city, they are actively hunting you. On the 3rd day, the swamp finally gives way to rolling hills and sparse woodland. You are out of the marsh, but you are weak, your body racked with feverish shivers from the bad water, your mind frayed by hunger and lack of sleep. The ghosts of the cove walk with you. You see Shiv's cold fury, Israel's brutal efficiency, Jedediah's crumpled form on the sand. Most of all, you see Abby's serene, knowing smile. She didn't just want Shiv's plan to fail. She wanted it to implode in the most spectacular, destructive way possible. It was never about the letters of Marclay or the governor's favor. It was about the art of it, the intellectual purity of total destruction. You were the flaw in her masterpiece, the unexpected brushstroke. And artists, you realize with a cold certainty, are obsessed with correcting their mistakes. You are on the verge of collapse, your vision blurring at the edges, when you crest a small hill and see it below. It's not a town, not even a real village. It's a hamlet, a small cluster of stone and thatched cottages, nestled in a shallow valley, a thin curl of smoke rising from a single chimney. A few sheep graze on the hillside. A woman hangs laundry on a line, her movements slow and unhurried. The world here seems to move at a different speed, governed by the sun and the seasons, not by greed and deadlines. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You stumble down the hill, a ragged apparition of mud and torn cloth. The woman sees you. She doesn't scream or run. She simply stops what she is doing and watches you approach, her face etched with a cautious pity. You collapse before you reach her, your legs finally giving out, the world dissolving into a black, spinning void. You wake up on a scratchy straw mattress in a small, dark space that smells of hay and animals. A barn. A rough wool blanket has been thrown over you. Beside you, on an overturned crate, is a wooden bowl of steaming stew and a cup of clean water. Your hands shake so badly you can barely lift the cup to your lips. The water is cool and sweet, a baptism. The stew is simple, mostly potatoes and carrots, but it is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. It is an act of kindness in a world you had forgotten could contain such a thing. Later, as the sun sets, casting long, golden shadows across the valley, You sit in the doorway of the barn, wrapped in the blanket. The woman, whose name you learn is Elspeth, leaves you be. She asks no questions. In a place like this, a stranger's past is their own business. To her, you are just a soul in need of a moment's grace, and she has given it freely. You watch the stars begin to prick the deep velvet of the sky, so many more than you could ever see from the city. The chaos of the port feels a world away. Here, there are no wanted posters, no frantic crowds, no whispers of bounty. There is only the gentle sound of sheep bleating and the cool caress of the night breeze. But peace is a luxury you cannot afford. You have survived, yes. You have escaped, but you are left with the crushing weight of what you saw. You think of Shiv, proud and calculating, now caged and awaiting a rope. You think of Israel, whose quiet care was a shield of violence, likely meeting the same end. Their ambition, their entire world, was built on a foundation of greed, and it crumbled the moment it was tested. And Abby won. Her curiosity was a scalpel, and she used it to dissect an entire enterprise, leaving nothing but ruin in her wake. She remains out there, a ghost in the corners, a quiet arbiter of fates. You look down at your own hands, clean now, but you can still feel the grime of the sewer, the slime of the alley wall. You weren't a participant, not really, you didn't choose a side. But your knowledge, the simple, terrible fact of what you witnessed, has made you a player. You escaped the initial slaughter, but the game is not over. You are a loose end, and in the world of shadows and secrets you have stumbled into, loose ends are always, eventually, tied off. You take a slow, deep breath of the clean country air, and you wonder how long it will be before the hunt begins again. The days that follow bleed into a quiet routine, a gentle rhythm that stands in stark, unbelievable contrast to the life you fled. You help Elspeth. You mend the stone wall that borders her small pasture, the rough weight of the rocks solid and real in your hands, a comforting anchor after so much chaos. You chop wood, the clean, sharp scent of pine filling your lungs, the repetitive swing of the axe, a meditation that quiets the screaming in your mind. You learn the names of her 3 sheep, Patience, Clover, and Thistle, and spend hours watching them graze, their placid existence a balm to your frayed nerves. You never speak of the port city, of the ship, of the blood on the sand. Elspeth never asks. Her kindness is a quiet, deep pool, and in its reflection, you begin to see a stranger wearing your face, someone you might one day become. But peace is a thin blanket, and at night, when the valley is sunk in a profound and star-dusted silence, the ghosts come for you. They don't arrive with a shriek, but with the quiet insistence of the tide. You lie on the straw mattress, the scent of hay and old wool filling your senses, and you close your eyes only to find yourself back in the cove. You see it all, not as a panicked blur, but with a terrible, crystalline clarity. You are no longer just an observer, you are the keeper of the ledger, the one who must tally the cost. First you see Shiv. You see her standing on the deck, pistol in hand, her face a mask of cold fury. You had seen her greed in the tavern, a patient, methodical thing, like a spider spinning its web. But on the beach, you saw what that greed was protecting. A brittle, desperate dream of control. She wasn't just after a chest of gold, she was after a kingdom, one she could build herself, one where her intellect would be the only law. She saw men not as people, but as assets, tools to be leveraged. And in the end, they broke in her hands. You picture her in chains aboard the Dauntless, that formidable calm finally shattered, her sharp mind racing, not for an escape plan, but against the crushing, undeniable truth of her failure. Her dream didn't just die, it devoured her. The cost of her ambition was not just her life, but the total annihilation of the world she had so carefully constructed. Then comes Israel Hands, the quiet furnace, the monstrous pet. You see him on the beach, a whirlwind of brutal, efficient violence, his cutlass a blur, his movements a dance of death. He was her shadow, her shield, the unspoken threat that gave her power its teeth. But you also remember the moment he helped her into the longboat, his large hand surprisingly gentle on her arm. Was it love, loyalty, or the simple, animalistic instinct of a predator protecting the alpha of its pack? He was a man who had built a wall of terror around himself, yet he allowed one person inside. In the end, his devotion was just another liability, another rope to bind him. His life was sworn to hers, and so his death was too. You wonder if, in his final moments, Facing a naval firing squad or the hangman's noose, he felt he had succeeded, protecting her until the very end. Or, if he finally understood that the person he had killed the most for was the one who had led him to his own destruction. The lesser ghosts follow, a pathetic, whispering procession. You see Jedediah, his rum-soaked pride curdling into mutiny, his face a mask of disbelief as Israel's fist connects with his jaw. He wanted respect, the authority of a captain, but he was just a pawn, moved by Shiv's promises and undone by Abby's truths. You see Thomas, the traitorous youth, his face pale with terror, as he realizes his handful of silver has bought him nothing but a pirate's blade in the back. He was a boy playing a man's game, and the price was steeper than he could ever have imagined. You see the scarred sailor, clutching the canvas sack he thought held a fortune, his desperate dream of escape extinguished by a single lead ball. They all wanted something: gold, respect, a future different from their past, and they wagered their lives for it on a single, flawed scheme. Their dreams weren't shattered. They were simply revealed to be hollow from the start, echoes in a tomb of their own making. And finally, always, there is Abigail Crane. She is the ghost who never leaves, the one who doesn't fade with the morning light. She stands at the edge of your memory, her small, knowing smile, a silent testament to her victory. Her weapon wasn't a sword or a pistol. It was knowledge. She understood the intricate architecture of human weakness. She saw Jedediah's pride, Thomas's desperation, the crew's greed, and Shiv's arrogance not as character flaws, but as levers. And she pulled them all with the precise, detached curiosity of a scientist dissecting a living thing, just to watch it fall apart. She didn't win a fortune. She proved a theorem. You were the anomaly in her equation, the uncounted variable. And the chilling certainty that she is out there, somewhere, observing, calculating, and tidying up loose ends, is a cold stone in the pit of your stomach. Slowly, day by day, the act of living begins to push the ghosts back. The sharp pain of a splinter from the fence post, the satisfying ache in your muscles after a day of work, the simple, profound pleasure of Elsbeth's stew. These small, real things become your armor. You begin to understand that the life you stumbled into, the world of pirates and schemes, was a fever dream. It was a world built on taking, on shortcuts, on the belief that a single, violent score could erase a lifetime of misery. But it was a lie. The real world, you are learning, is built on mending fences, on chopping wood, on the slow, patient work of survival. One evening, as you sit with Elsbeth by her small hearth, the fire casting a warm, dancing glow on her weathered face, she speaks. You carry a heavy burden, she says, her voice soft. Not a question, but a statement of fact. She is staring into the flames, her knitting needles clicking softly. You look at her, surprised. You've been so careful, so silent. You begin, but the words die in your throat. You don't need to name it, she continues, her eyes still on the fire. Some storms leave wreckage that takes a lifetime to clear, but you are not the storm. You are the shore it washed up on. You can let the tide take the wreckage away, or you can let it rot and poison the sand. The choice is yours. Her words settle over you, simple and profound. You are not the storm. You did not command the winds of greed or the currents of betrayal. You were just caught in their path. You think of the wanted poster in the alley, the blank space where your face should be. For weeks it has been a symbol of your terror, of being hunted. But now you see it differently. It is a blank space, an opportunity. The person who was seen in the salty dog, who hid on the sea serpent, who crawled through the sewers of the city, that person can die. They can be left behind, a piece of wreckage for the tide to claim. That night, for the first time, you sleep without dreaming of the cove. You wake to the gentle light of dawn, not with a jolt of terror, but with a sense of quiet emptiness. It is not the emptiness of loss, but the emptiness of a vessel that is ready to be filled. You have accepted it. The lives lost, the dreams shattered. They are a part of you now, a scar on your soul, a terrible lesson etched in blood and salt water. They are the price you paid for a life you never even asked for. But you survived. And survival, you now realize, is not just about running and hiding. It's about choosing to live. You walk out of the barn and up the hillside as the sun crests the distant peaks, bathing the valley in a soft golden light. The world feels new, washed clean. You are no longer running from the past. You are carrying it, a heavy but necessary burden as you walk toward an unknown future. The pirate life is behind you, a ghost story you will tell no one. You have accepted the consequences of your choices, the primary one being the choice to live when so many others did not. The peace you feel is fragile, tentative, like the first green shoots of spring after a long, brutal winter. You know the world is still a dangerous place. You know that a woman with curious eyes and a quiet smile may still be out there, balancing her ledgers. But for the first time in a long time, as you stand on that hill and breathe in the clean morning air, you feel something other than fear. You feel the faint flickering stirrings of hope. The hope is fragile, a single candle flame in a vast, dark room, but it does not gutter. It holds. In the weeks that follow, you learn the geography of this small, forgotten valley as intimately as you once knew the panicked layout of the port city's alleys. You learn the sharp, clean scent of the air after a rainstorm, the way the mist clings to the low-lying fields in the mornings, and the precise spot on the hill where you can see the sun's first rays spill over the ridge like liquid gold. The work is hard, the kind that sinks into your bones and grants you the gift of dreamless sleep. Your hands, once soft and then shredded, grow calloused and strong. You are no longer running, you are rooting yourself in the soil, drawing strength from the solid, unyielding earth beneath your feet. Summer arrives, blanketing the valley in a thick, drowsy heat. The days are long and filled with the low drone of bees and the rhythmic clatter of Elspeth's loom from her open cottage door. You spend your afternoons clearing stones from a fallow field, your sweat stinging your eyes, your back aching with a clean, honest exhaustion. You watch hawks circle on the thermals high above, their effortless glide a study in freedom you are only just beginning to understand. There is no urgency here, no tide to race, no deadline to meet. There is only the slow, patient turning of the sun, the frantic, desperate greed of the port, the all-or-nothing gamble for a single, life-changing score. Seems like a madness from another world. What is a chest of stolen jewels compared to a sky full of stars? What is a governor's pardon compared to the quiet dignity of a day's labor? You learn to cherish the things you once would have overlooked. The taste of fresh water from Elspeth's well, so cold it makes your teeth ache. The warmth of a new-baked loaf of bread she hands you, its crust crackling under your fingers. The simple, profound trust of the sheep, who eventually learn to graze near you without skittering away. These are not assets or liabilities. They are just gifts, small anchors of grace in a world you thought was devoid of them. The memories are still there, of course. Sometimes, the sharp glint of the sun off your axe blade will bring back the flash of a drawn cutlass, or a sudden clap of thunder will echo the gunshot that ended a man's life. But the terror has lost its teeth. The images are becoming just that, images. Flat, faded photographs from a life that belongs to someone else. Autumn paints the valley in hues of rust and gold. The air grows crisp, and the nights draw in, sharp and clear. One afternoon, a traveling peddler makes his way through the hamlet, his mule laden with pots, pans, and trinkets from the wider world. Elspeth trades him a roll of her fine wool for a bag of salt and a small tin of tea. Out of a habit you thought you'd lost, the cool, assessing gaze of the auction hall, you find your eyes drifting over his wares. And then you see it. Tucked among cheap tin brooches and bone buttons is a small wooden box filled with shells and worn pebbles. In its center sits a piece of sea glass, a deep cobalt blue, worn smooth and opaque by countless years of being tumbled by the surf. You pick it up. It's cool and heavy in your palm, its texture like silk. It feels ancient. As you hold it, a sound you haven't heard in months rises in your memory, so clear and powerful it makes you catch your breath. It is the roar of the ocean, the endless, rhythmic crash of waves on a shore. It is the sound of the world you fled. You can smell the salt, feel the spray on your face, taste the bitter promise of adventure and the iron tang of blood. The peddler is watching you, a shrewd look in his eye. You trade him the last copper coin you have for the piece of glass. You don't know why. That night, you don't go back to the barn. You walk up the hill, the one that overlooks the entire valley, and you sit with your back against a familiar, moss-covered boulder. The moon is a perfect silver coin in the black sky, illuminating the sleeping world below. You hold the sea glass in your hand, its smooth surface a conduit to the past. And you let them come. You invite the ghosts for one last meeting. Siopan, you whisper to the wind. the name feeling strange and foreign on your tongue. You wanted a kingdom. You saw the world as a ledger, and people as numbers to be added or subtracted. You were brilliant, and you were terrifying, and your ambition built a beautiful, intricate trap that you were the first to walk into. I hope you found some kind of peace at the end, though I doubt it was in your nature. You open your hand and look at the sea glass. Your kingdom was as fragile as this, beautiful but empty. You think of Israel, the silent, brutal guardian. And you, Mr. Hands. You were a force of nature, the blade in the shadows. But your loyalty was your cage. You dedicated your life to protecting a dream that was destined to burn, and you were content to burn with it. Was it worth it? To be the monster that kept the wolves from the door, only to find the greatest danger was already inside? Quote, you picture the chaos on the beach, the desperate faces, the fallen bodies. Jedediah, Thomas. The nameless sailor clutching his sack of fool's gold. And all of you, you murmur, your voice thick with a sorrow that no longer feels like fear. You chased a shortcut to a better life and found only a quicker death. You traded your souls for a whisper of gold, for a chance to stop struggling. I understand. More than you know, I understand. Finally, you let yourself think of Abigail Crane, the architect of it all, the quiet observer in the corner. For a moment, you feel a flicker of the old dread. She is the one ghost who might still be walking the earth, the one loose end that might still be searching for you. But as you sit there, surrounded by the vast, peaceful silence of the valley, you realize something profound. She has no power here. Her weapons, information, secrets, the subtle manipulation of human weakness are useless in a world where the greatest treasure is a bowl of hot stew and the most valuable secret is the name of a sheep. Her intricate game of chess is meaningless on a board where the pieces refuse to play. Goodbye, Abby, you say, and the words are an exorcism. You won. I hope you enjoy the ruins. Quote, you stand up, your joints stiff from the cold, and you walk to the edge of the hill. You pull your arm back, the sea glass a small, cool weight in your palm. For a moment, you hesitate. It's the last piece of that life you have, the last tangible proof that any of it was real. Then, with a deep, shuddering breath, you throw it. It soars through the night air, a tiny shooting star of deep blue, before disappearing into the darkness of the valley below. It is gone. You have let it go. You stand there for a long time, listening. The only sounds are the chirping of crickets, the soft sigh of the wind through the dry autumn grass, and the distant gentle bleating of a restless sheep. The roar of the ocean is gone. You strain to hear it, to catch even a faint, phantom echo of the surf, but there is nothing. It has been replaced by the quiet, steady heartbeat of the land. The golden age of piracy, with all its violent glory and desperate gambles, is over for you. Its songs have faded. Its treasures have rusted. Its legends have been swallowed by time. It was a thrilling, terrible, magnificent storm. But you have found your harbor. You are no longer a witness, no longer a fugitive, no longer a ghost. You are just a soul on a quiet hillside, watching the moon sail through a sea of stars. You turn your back on the darkness and walk down toward the warm, welcoming light of Elspeth's cottage, the silence of the valley wrapping around you like a familiar, comforting blanket. You have found your peace. And here, in the stillness of the sleeping world, you can finally, truly breathe.